PlayStation Direct?
Or PlayStation Inside.
Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett, back and alongside me, Mr.
Saw Bridges, bringing you guys lucky episode 104. Exactly 2 years. 52 weeks times 2 that we have been doing this now.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That is.
It's impressive just because of the fact that we're still doing it and still
It's
having fun.
It's impressive on such a non-impressive number. Like,
exactly.
Like who celebrates 104 of anything? Like, I mean, I guess
we do.
I guess your birthday.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd celebrate any birthday after 99.
Dude, well, I mean, to be fair, I think we're just weird. We don't really celebrate our birthdays anyway. A lot of people go big almost every year that they can.
I don't understand that, man.
Some people do the 5-year things. Like, I'm 25 now. I'm 30 now.
Listen, for all of you that haven't hit 25 yet, once you hit 25, there's nothing significant until 30 at all. Like, you're gonna be. I can't remember my birthday right now.
You're supposed to get insurance breaks at 25.
I said after like 25. 25
okay.
is it. Like,
okay,
25, you're a quarter of a century old. That's the cool part about it. Do you know, anytime somebody asks me how old I am, I have to sit there and think about it for a second.
I don't even care.
I forget if I'm 28 or 27. I'm 27, I think.
I get how old I am.
Yeah, I'm turning 28 this year. So
I get this is one of those ingrained things in you. Like, I don't even have to think about it. I just know how old I am.
Well, every now and then my older brother would ask me my birthday. He'd be like, it's like, you 23 or 22? I'm like, 22. He's like, oh, okay. And I was like,
I might
dude
be
forgot my birthday. No, like,
okay.
dude forgot. I'm like, now I understand. I'm like, I forgot how old I am. But anyways, we're a PlayStation podcast. And,
not a weird birthday podcast.
I know people like those little, what are they? Just
I don't know what
randoms.
you even call that. It's just random. Yeah. Some people may not, though. So with that in mind, we are a PlayStation podcast, Triangle Squared. You can find us in video format on YouTube every Monday at 10 a.m. PST and 12 p.m. CST. If you like what we're doing over here, give us a subscribe and hit the bell notification. Let you know when these videos go live, which is every Monday and every other Friday currently, though we have a little golden... I don't want to say too much. We have some stuff coming down the pipeline very soon.
Why would you even say that?
Just
well, we haven't decided the name anyways. I like the second name, to be honest.
I kind of like them both, but yeah,
I think we may like
mildly torn.
Let's find like 4 people in our Discord and be like, hey, these are the names of a potential project. Which one do you like?
Okay, we'll do that. But anyway, if you like what we're talking about or have any thoughts about what we're talking about, let us know down in the comments below. We love to hear y'all's thoughts and what you think. And of course, we may use those and pull those to talk about in our new segment that we're doing, the community's take, before we get into the news and everything. So if you want to listen to us in audio format only, you don't care to see our ugly mugs, then you can do so on podcast services, be it iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, doesn't matter.
Speak for yourself. I'm a certified daddy.
You are a certified daddy, but I mean, I'm not calling you a certified daddy, but I've seen someone call you a certified daddy. So,
that's true.
It's okay.
Multiple people have called me certified daddy.
If you like what we're talking about and want to be able to interact with us through the audio only version, you can do so by reaching out to us on our social media things. That is Twitter at Triangle SQRD. You can find us on Facebook on Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. You can ask to join that group and we will gladly accept you. You can find us in our Discord where we also do stuff, and you can talk about it in the podcast open discussion chat that we have there. You can find that link down in the description below. And then lastly, if you'd like to support what we're doing in any form, shape, or fashion, you can go to our Patreon. It's down in the link below. It's patreon.com/Nartech, and give $1 to the show. Help us cover. I mean, even anything as simple as $1 can help us cover, hosting costs for putting the show up, getting new stuff in as we do, starting new shows and being able to pay for those, covering charges as well. So consider that. And if you want to go higher in the hog, you can do $5 or $7, depending on if you're national in the U.S. or international outside, and get a cool, sweet custom case every 3 months, every quarter of the year. So with that said, and that means we're coming up. So April will be, I'll be posting on our Patreon the pic showing all the custom cases we have so that our patrons can choose.
For those that don't follow us on Twitter and don't have a Discord, we have a new partnership.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
We have a good friend named Ryan who has created a new gaming website for news, articles, all kinds of fun stuff. And it is Jack of All Controllers. pretty cool website. You guys go check it out. I actually published my very first written article over there just the other day on why you should play Dark Souls. So yeah, pretty cool website run by a pretty cool dude, and you'll see us every now and then post occasional stuff to that, just like I did.
Currently, just due to the partnership, we're kind of acting as a de facto podcast for them. But it's great people doing great things. So yeah, if you want to kind of support people starting up something just like we did, then go over there and check it out. And it's cool to just have our name on a website regardless of whatever it is, our little Nartec name.
Oh yeah, dude, super proud of like seeing an article be like, hey Annie, look at this, and I showed her and I had like the image I selected and everything. I'm like, look at who it's written by, and she was like, oh wow, I didn't even know you did that.
Oh wow. Oh.
She's like, I'm so happy I married you. There's an article you wrote about a video game on a website. I am famous.
Show me where the bedroom's at now.
She did say all that. I'm joking, but yeah, it's super cool to be to see that up there and be like, you know, I can now say to like family members who are quite not in touch with the internet who think publishing an article would be a very big deal and make me feel a little bit better about myself.
So you can bloat your ego up a little bit.
Yeah, but like, yeah, I've published articles out there. Just keep it plural. I'll publish one more or something here soon.
Yeah. Articles, because right now you're just article.
Yeah, article.
You got more than
that
me.
S doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, Saul, we'll go into the normal opening of the show, which is always the most important thing. I really have not seen you or talked to you, I don't think, at all this week. So what have you been up to? What have you been playing? Have you played anything?
I haven't played anything this week at all except Sekiro.
And so that was literally started Thursday night?
No, it started yesterday.
Yesterday?
I played
Did you not buy digitally?
2 hours. No, I did. I
got
off work.
Digital's actually midnight. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's 11.
Is that what they do here?
Yeah.
I didn't know. So
so it's that's why I started.
When you preload, it'll let you play at 11 here?
Yeah, that's why it's not a big deal for me, because if you get home at 9 or 9:30 installing all the patches and stuff, it's about 11 o'clock anyways.
So what do they use? They must use Eastern time as their server setting. That's interesting.
But I got off work late on Thursday and then I had to work early on Friday. So I went home yesterday, took a nap, and then I jumped into Sekiro, whatever you want to call it, for about 2 hours, maybe 2.5, and I played it for about 30 minutes today. Game is really fun so far, really good, but it is a very traditional From Software game that comes with a few bugs at launch, which are kind of annoying to deal with.
I wouldn't call it traditional From Software, but yeah, I get what you mean. The bugs are traditional, but the game itself is not.
Oh yeah, the game itself is not traditional. The bugs are. I was gonna say every From Software Soulsborne game is launched with bugs at launch.
I don't know for sure, but I would almost argue that maybe every From Software game is launched with bugs.
I'm sure every game to some extent does, but yeah.
Well, yeah, you can never completely kill bugs, but you can go pretty dang close.
Yeah, I'm having a pretty good time with the game. It is very punishing because, as someone who's played a lot of Dark Souls 3 lately, you get that mindset of like, especially trying to speedrun Dark Souls 3, you want to rush through things, and you can't play this game the same as you play other Dark Souls games. It just doesn't work that way. You can't just R1 spam your way through victory, and it has mechanics in it and such, and combat styles that are you have to get used to that are completely different. Dodging and stuff is almost differently timed. So I'm having a really good time with it so far, albeit a little bit frustrating, but interestingly enough, it's the basis of what I wrote that article on about why you should play Dark Souls and why I haven't quit yet, is because if you take the time with a From Software game like this and you learn it, and you learn from your mistakes, it gets way easier, and I haven't jumped over that hurdle yet. But I'm waiting for it because I know it will be there soon. But other than that,
no Final Fantasy this week?
No Final Fantasy this
Tetris?
week. I'm not going back to Final Fantasy until I beat Sekiro. No Tetris. I really don't think I played anything this week other than that. I think I did maybe 1 or 2 Dark Souls runs trying to just perfect the time and get that better, and trying with different weapons and loadouts and stuff. Okay. But I really think that's it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I went and picked up Far Cry New Dawn. I think we talked about that. And I didn't play it the first few days I had it. I was still rolling through Anthem and doing my trophy grind. But I got to the point where I realized that the last 3 trophies I'm at, 2 of which I'm very close on, they're just the loyalty trophies for, I think the ones I have left are Freelancer and Sentinel. And I'm very close to them. I just kind of was like, well, I don't want to burn myself out on this when following these 2 trophies, the last trophy I have to do is all a bunch of collectibles. And it's just annoying. And it's one of those things where
it's the same with Dark Souls 3 for me. It's like I could play through the game a million times to play the game, but then there's like you have to do these little side quests to get gestures and stuff.
telling me to play it this very specific way just for this trophy, which I know is the point of trophies.
Yeah.
I'm not hating. It's just I played the game already, probably about 70 hours. I don't want to spend another 10 immediately right now and ruin the great time I've had with the game.
It makes you more sluggish.
And it's a little bit my fault. I should have been trying to nail down a lot of those collectibles throughout playing it normally, but I wasn't. I probably should have looked at the trophies knowing that I was aiming for plat, but oh well. Now I'm on Far Cry New Dawn. I started playing that, and it's a surprisingly more interesting game than 5. You know, I was really worried about it because of the fact that 5 just left kind of a... 5 was a game that, like, when you immediately beat it, it's like, well... It was Far Cry, and it was good. It wasn't as good as I was wanting it to be because it didn't play with that religious free... they didn't go... And I should have known.
Off the deep end like we wanted them to.
And I should have known.
You know, you inadvertently spoiled New Dawn for me.
How?
I don't know how you did it, but you were talking to Blake yesterday in Discord about a character in that game.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm like, I wasn't really thinking of anything. Like, I looked at what I was talking about was cool was like the image you posted. I'm like, that character looks really dope.
Yeah.
Last night, I was literally hanging out with Joe, and I was scrolling through YouTube to find out what to put on Chromecast and recommended, and there it was. And it was like, it had a picture of that, and I'm like, oh, is that Far Cry? Then I look at the title. It tells you who that character is.
Oh.
And I was like, how did this happen? Did Google look at my Discord and then was like, he wants to know who that is?
Yeah, because I specifically DM'd Blake to not tell anybody else who may have wondered.
And I looked at that, I'm like, that's pretty cool. That sucks that I just got that spoiled for me.
Yeah, well, it's not a big revelation in the game, to be fair.
If you're one of those,
and actually, you can play through the whole game without knowing it. Blake played the whole game and didn't even know.
I picked that up whenever he didn't know.
Yeah,
but yeah, if you're one of those YouTubers who puts like literal spoilers in the title, like, and I'm not even saying it wasn't. It was a very short title. It was such and such as such and such, and I was like, that doesn't even make sense on how that's possible, but it probably does, and it probably is who it is.
Yeah.
So,
well, hate to tell you, but that wasn't my intention. But with that said, I've found the game to be far more interesting than 5. I think partially because 5 was a story of being let down a little bit, and then I went into this with such low expectations because of that I think that this game has been able to actually kind of...
That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what the title... That's literally what the title is on YouTube, except it used the name. And it's such a short name that you can't not use it. It's just like...
Stupid.
Don't do that. Don't be that person. I wish there's a way to block YouTubers on YouTube. So like I'd have to stop seeing them pop up because this is something I've seen quite a lot pop up.
Yeah, you had some other games spoiled to you.
It's very minorly, yeah, but it happens every now and then, and it's like
it does. But Saul, you know, you were talking about the months back whenever they started talking about it, they were adding these RPG elements to the game,
right?
And they were kind of like the RPG light elements that you see them adding into things like Assassin's Creed and whatnot. And surprisingly, they work really well in the game because they don't feel like they're weird in the game. The health bars being there is not a massive change. And if anything, all it is like, it already took you a number of hits to kill everything anyway. It wasn't one hit kills. Now you're just seeing what that invisible bar would have been otherwise.
There's a health bar in that game now?
Yeah. Above every enemy's head. But the way it works is that it's tied into, like, of course, a harder enemy is going to be harder to kill. So they tied into another RPG light aspect where they kind of do the Diablo thing where they can be a normal enemy, they can be a blue enemy, they can be a purple enemy, or a yellow enemy, which is elite. So you can go through that way, and elites are a lot harder to kill, but that means also that your weapons are graded that way. You can build weapons that are basic, and there's a tier of weapons that are all the types of weapons in the game that are the basic version. Then you can do one that's like the rank 2, which is blue, rank 3, which is purple, and rank 4, which is all elite weapons. So I think it's rare,
this
epic,
is Far Cry we're talking about?
Yeah, Far Cry New Dawn. And
wow, I didn't know all this in that either.
I guess you just didn't realize what I was talking about back then. But yeah, that's one of the things.
No, I did. I'm shocked that the Far Cry does this.
Yeah, but it makes sense, and it really works, and it doesn't feel like it's something that's been added. It almost seems like you're just getting a new layer of something that already existed almost.
Yeah, because I mean...
Because like looting is no different than it was. You'd still just go to the body and loot them. And I thought that they were going to be trying to do it to where like you go through and loot like you do in Assassin's Creed, which I guess it technically is the same. I don't know. It's very interesting the way they go about it. But the game has been interesting mainly because of the fact that it chooses to use Far Cry 5's world in a way that feels far more like Far Cry to me. The thing about Far Cry 5 is that I guess because when you've had a series, it's always been in outer, crazier worlds, and then you move it into a place like America. The thing about it is, most of us don't live in those island paradises and those crazy things, and like the Himalayas or Africa. You know what I mean? Like, of course there are parts, but it's sub-Saharan Africa, whatever you want to call it. The Far Cry series, to me, I always thought it was called Far Cry because you're supposed to be a far cry from home.
Right.
You know, it's like you're supposed to be in
which is what Far Cry 1 and 2
areas.
was.
Yeah, exactly. And Far Cry
3 technically was too.
And so was 4. 4 was in Tibet and the Himalayas, which is very.
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, people live there, but
Oh, that's right. I was like, doesn't 4 take place in Colorado?
no, yeah, it's 5 took place in Hope County, Michigan. I think is what it's supposed to be. Is it not Michigan?
No, it's
Are you sure? Montana. That's what it is. Yeah. Anyway, look, it feels far more like it because, you know, with the radiation hitting everything and the colors hitting everywhere, the world feels more foreign.
I heard there's horror elements in the game. Do you agree with that? Somebody said it's scary, like at certain points, like where it's dark and like in certain areas of the game, it's like really decrepit looking, and it's almost
well, there's definitely like a radiation wall. Where like you go into it's like real drab in color and it's real brown. Like none of the trees have regrown any kind of because like the radiation's so high there that no life can
you
grow.
actually go and explore through there? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Most games like Far Cry, like if we go to what was that place on Far Cry 4 called?
Fallout 4, you mean?
Yeah, the Lost Lake or whatever it was called, like where it's radiation zone.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like the eye of where it hit.
All those death claws hidden in there.
Yeah, which is an interesting way to go about doing it, but. I mean, I don't know. It's a very interesting game. If you like the idea of taking and this is the same thing that Primal did. Primal reused 4's map and just changed the topography a little bit. But it was the same map structure and everything, so they didn't have to worry about redesigning anything. They just ran with it and changed it a little bit to make it look more fitting to the time period. And it's got some of the Far Cry staples that are getting kind of odd at this point, where it's almost like, okay, I guess you expect it. Like Herc is in every single game. So Herc is in this one. It's the same Herc as last one, of course, which makes sense. But the changes have been nice.
He was in 3 or 4?
He was in 3 and 4. I think he was even in 2. He was in 3, 4, New Dawn. I mean, New Dawn, but he was also in Primal.
How was he in Primal?
Oh, I could explain it to you.
I bet he was funny.
Yeah, it was great.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway.
He was a funny character in 5.
Let's move on. I'm trying to think of ways to talk about New Dawn without spoiling too much, but I'll say this. I got it at $20, and it's exceeded my $20 drastically. So with that said though, Saul, I guess before we hop into everything, we're going to go over and look at the community's take on the last episode where we talked about and I think that a couple people may have not realized, I don't know, I'm not going to say that. You know, World End specifically was one of the ones on YouTube where he's saying, I don't guess he doesn't really understand the need to talk about the main topic. And I'm not going to say as much as that there was a need, more about the fact that I think sometimes people think that their subjective opinion of something has to be the objective reality of it. And I think a perfect example of this is something like, and this is just something interesting, and we keep going back to Anthem right now, but it's just one of those funny things. I keep seeing things about the Division 2, right? I see a lot of good things about it. I hear a lot of good things about it. But then, of course, I hear that there's co-op scaling issues whenever you have multiple people in the game. It doesn't scale accurately. The game crashes a lot. All problems that Anthem had, but for some reason, Anthem was lambasted for these issues. And the Division is not. It's weird, but it comes down to those things where for somebody who probably was important put a subjective opinion on, you know, Anthem and deemed it as not good enough, and then just kind of ran with that, and then it just spread like wildfire throughout the media. But it's just one of those things where nothing we said is probably, I mean, I doubt we said anything that anybody hadn't thought of, but there is a importance, I think, in the few people that do always use their subjective opinion as a fact and try and push that on everybody else as a fact. It's maybe good for some of those people to hear, and for the people who are on the flip side of that and constantly getting told by people that something has to be fact just because it's their thought, that you can have dissenting opinions about different games and you can find your own value in very crazily different ways. So,
well, that's what I was going to say, is that value also has many different meanings. So most of the time,
value is almost entirely subjective to me. Me and World End talked about that. Like, you know, there are some things that you can put a real value on, and we talked about that in the episode. You can put a real qualitative or quantitative, whatever you call it, really quantitative, because that's quality is all in the eye of the beholder. So quantity is true for everybody, right? So we can go look. Is the game a higher resolution? We can say yes. quantitatively speaking, we can look at it and go, that game runs at 1280 by 720. This game runs at 1080p, 1920 by 1080. So the 1920 by 1080 is better in that area, but that's not really value. Value is about the perception that you have when you play something, is whether you enjoy it. And I mean, that's essentially what we're getting at. But the community's take on this is pretty interesting. So there's a couple of things here.
Yeah, and as far as that goes for me too, I think that the value of a game also, people can determine the value of a game not only by the $60 price tag.
Exactly. Yeah, value is even more than what you spent on the game.
Yeah.
Because then that's how we end up
the time
saying
you spent on the game.
That we would spend $100 on a game that didn't even cost.
That's not, if Terraria is $100, that's not a value for anybody except us, because we're the ones that are saying that it's worth
and we
$100.
projected that value onto it.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's something. So for me, value is always something that you project onto a product, regardless of price or anything.
Yeah.
But you can be given a better value if you think something's worth $100 and then you only pay a fifth of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, I'm getting even more out of that. Just like with Far Cry, I'm getting even more out of paying $20 for New Dawn versus the $40. And it's just making the value is still the same, but I'm viewing it in a slightly different light because I didn't spend as much money on it.
It's weird that a lot of games that are coming out lately are dropping in price by $10 to $20 within the first 3 or 4 weeks.
That's half off. Yeah, that's not, and definitely Ubisoft. It's not uncommon. Within the first 6 weeks, typically, you can get it for about half off.
Odyssey hasn't done that yet, has it?
Yeah, I got it for $27. A month and a half after it launched.
Is it Odyssey and Origins? Origins is the Egypt one, right?
Yeah, no, they don't completely price drop. What they do is a temporary price drop. This isn't a permanent. This is a sale.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's one of those odd situations.
Well, yeah, I knew it was a sale to begin with because it was exclusive at Best Buy.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, one of the things that Sean May, which was the listener and friend of ours, that kind of spurred the conversation that him and Saul were having and led into this topic. He says, I also want to add that they add new content all the time to these games. And the last one you can make your own run and more challenges to. I think he's actually specifically talking about Wargroove here. Also, Outward, with its ideas that I told Saul, it's just... You see games at less price be on par with $60 games or close with it, getting better with free updates like Wargroove, where it has a single-player campaign, but you can make your own stories with cutscenes and other things while also doing online co-op at a $20 price point. Also, like Stardew Valley, now even having multiplayer to play with friends with even more content that was free. Just you see smaller games are, at least for me, better than $60 games. And that's what we're getting at the point. Is, the crazy thing about value and how subjective it is that it can make a $10 indie game or a $20 indie game look better to you than a $60 or be better to you realistically. In your own heart and opinion, it makes it better than you than something that costs more. Some people equate value to how much you pay for something, and that's why you see people driving around in Lamborghinis and stuff like that. But some people don't. Some people go, no, I got way more value out of this car, out of my Hyundai that I bought for $20,000 that gets great gas mileage, cheaper insurance, and is still a solid car that I didn't have to spend half of my life's earnings on.
I got to Fort Worth, and I was still at above half a tank of gas.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I mean, is that it's one of those things. So I get where he's coming from, and that's interesting. Real quick, we're going to go to the flip side of that, which was we wanted people to give us examples of games that they thought were better than AAA games, just so we can kind of talk about the fact that value lets these kind of distorted views kind of come through. But Liam says Valhalla, which is VA11HALLA. It was a Vita game, and I think even on PS4, was better to me than God of War and Spider-Man. He said that over on the Discord channel. Again, if you want to talk with us on our Discord channel, you can go join in the link below. He says, let's see. Oh, Josh Ayers via Discord goes back to the main topic that we talked about. One of the problems I think you semi-highlighted within your discussion that I think is a problem is that specifically in America, maybe Canada, the price of games since last gen hasn't changed, yet we expect more from AAA games. I'm not saying every game should be $90 at launch, but maybe some should be the price of games here. Oh, maybe some should. The price of games here when AC1 launched was $110 a game. Now it's $88 a game, and some stores are pushing for $68 as of the end of last year. But I'm totally fine paying $100 here for a game. That's why for games I know I love, or I will love, I buy collector's editions to support them. And that isn't, we've talked about that before to an extent. Definitely in America, and of course, because we're American, I don't know how much this changes when you're in areas like Canada and when you're in areas like the UK and all of Europe, not all of Europe, but UK and some of those, British territories, whatever you call them. When you're talking about that, I don't know how much these games have changed in price, but specifically in America, the last time that we had a change in price was $10 up at the start of the 360 generation. PS2 games kept their price point at $50, but as soon as PS3 and 360 games started hitting, they were all $60. So $10 price increase over, about 14 years ago now? So maybe, because the Xbox 360 launched in 2005, right? I'm fairly positive. So if you look at that, so that's been 14 years essentially since we've had any kind of a price change. And he's right. Teams are bigger. And we've talked about this before to an extent, but teams are bigger than ever. Games cost more to make because of the fact that teams are bigger and they're pushing more graphical, as they get more graphical abilities, they hire more people to push those to their absolute edge. When we're talking about AAA games for sure, yet people expect more and more out of them. And, it is interesting that this goes back to what we were talking about with the idea of value. We expect more out of these games, but a lot of the time we expect more from a quantity number than we even do from a quality number. And again, quality being subjective, but I think that most people would be able to reasonably argue that just because you give me a game, I'm trying to think of two examples. Okay, I got one. Spider-Man, PS4.
Yeah.
The Witcher 3. Both are $60 games. The Witcher 3, every bit of side content in it, they try and give it a real narrative and a real purpose for the most part. You can argue that the Dandelion thing was odd and weirdly placed and you didn't want to do it. But they at least had a narrative back and they were trying to roll through. And they tried giving a reason. The Bloody Baron story, side quest is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's a completely optional thing. You don't have to do it.
That was probably, I like that side quest more than the entirety of the game I played.
Yeah, so there's a lot of great things about that game and the way it portrays side quests. But then you go to a game like Spider-Man, which has a ton of side stuff for you to do, but none of it has any narrative value or any value to the world as a whole. There's very few. It has very bad side content. This also goes into something like Infamous Second Son. There's a ton of things you can do to clear out these blocks, but none of them have any kind of narrative or drive or anything, and they're the same over and over again. So, for some people, I just want games to be bigger. I don't care if I got to pay $90. Well, I don't think, it's one of those things where I think a lot of these people say that, but then they don't realize that when they get a $90 game that's still doing the same thing and going, oh, well, they just want more content to justify this $90, but we're going to give them another $30 of the same content over and over and over.
Right.
But they don't realize that there's a level that you can catch between it. You can give me more content with more impact on the game, or you can even give me a $60 game that doesn't worry about any of that and make sure that the story content itself is just as good as it can possibly get. I don't care. I'm not going to be satisfied. And again, this is my personal value that I place on games. That's why I can say that I like something like The Order. What The Order tried giving me in its 11 hours or whatever it took me to beat was exactly what I think it needed. Some people go, well, it needs to be longer. I don't know if they had more story to tell there. So honestly, did it need to be longer? Would it have been suddenly magically worth $60 more if it was 5 hours more of just running through and just killing that many more vampires and stuff with no story gain and no real purpose? No, it wouldn't have, in my opinion. So, it highlights this thing about value being the way that money goes into it and the way people expect out of things. But, yeah, you highlight a good point, Josh. Yes, people want more out of games than ever, and they don't want game prices to change. So, it's I don't even know how you win that,
Yeah, it's
developers
tough.
And publishers have nothing that they can really do. But I will say I've seen a reasonable group of people, a decently big group of people, say that they're okay with the idea of game prices going up and being more scalable. So that a game like Ratchet and Clank that comes can be $40 and look great and play great for a $40 game and feel justifiable at that point. But then a game like The Witcher 3 can come out at $100 and feel justifiable at that point. And you can kind of play that line, and then you can still let $60 games come out that kind of act as the traditional length and scope that we expect from a $60 game. And then when games want to push it more, and the other thing about that is raising the price of the game. If more people end up buying at that price, you may be able to justify more years of development. It's one of those very interesting things where you can push these games to do even more and be even better if you're willing to pay more for them. And they'll go, well, we'll make up the difference if we give it another year of development to make sure that it hits this quality level and people are willing to pay $20 more for it because of it. Does it balance out,
Yeah. because we still really don't know how much money it goes into developing every game that comes out. So it's rough to keep track of that.
And how much of that?
You can't.
Yeah, and how much of that budget goes to marketing?
Yeah,
and how much of it goes to the game?
The salary of the employees that are working there too. So it's one of those weird things it's really hard, and it's something that you never really can have a number for. So you can't really go off of anything with it. So it's if they raise the price and say, games are now $69.99 instead of $59.99, and they say it's going to help fund games more, they're really, there could be outrage for it, but there can't be outrage in terms of that because you really don't know. Like, unless you're an insider spewing out like this is not fair. If you're somebody who works at, I don't know, like say Bethesda, and you say that it takes us this many people, they're paid this salary, it takes us this long, like break it down for us, you don't know. So you can't really argue against it. You can say it sucks because you don't have enough money. That makes sense.
Some people want transparency in the game industry from that, to where we see what the budget was for every game.
I don't.
Because, the movie industry is fairly transparent in that remark.
The movie industry, though, is you buy a game, it goes to the developers. You buy a ticket at the movies, it goes to the studios. And then it's a lot. There's a lot more difference there. I remember reading an article about this a couple years back on this exact same thing, actually. So it's funny you brought that up. And that there was a lot going into that because the amount of money the actors are paid and how drastically differently per actor they're paid.
Absolutely.
Versus typically like when you have like voice actors and stuff on set, I don't think there's a $5 million to $10 million gap there like there is with like other actual, like not to be offending, but human being acting.
Well, yeah.
Or live
do you act on live action where you actually are full body acting? And the thing about that line's disappearing too with mocap becoming bigger and bigger. These are actors who are voice acting technically and mocapping, so real bodily acting all at the same time. So the only difference between them and an actor that does live action is that their moves and words are just being interpreted into a digital landscape.
Yeah.
So
it's a whole new beast that's coming out that we don't really know how it's going to work in terms of the funding and stuff, and it's hard to keep track of. So.
But I get what you were talking about though, because I'm assuming that the article probably would kind of. I haven't read this or anything.
It's been a while, and it compared. What it did was it compared. I don't even remember the game series. I want to say it was Elder Scrolls, which is why I said Bethesda. But I don't remember. But it compared it to Avengers, which is kind of rough because at the time, like 3 years ago, Avengers was probably one of the highest, still is one of the highest grossing box office.
Sure. But numbers. So is Bethesda. If you want to put it against Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is a massive success.
It might have been Fallout 4, actually. It might have been comparing Fallout 4 and Bethesda to Avengers, but I don't think that was it, though. But anyways, it was comparing basically that there are, say, 20 main leads in this movie that are getting paid, the bulk total of like $100 million, basically, or plus. Yeah. And the amount they're being paid by the studio and to work this movie is completely different than the amount of money funded for a game. Because somebody had brought it up on why it's a dumb, like you can't argue that. You can't argue
Well, I see it to an extent. So just to bring it up for this comparison point, the Avengers budget was $220 million, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, and I doubt that Bethesda would put it out there, but let's see if we can do Fallout 4 budget.
I wonder what the budget for Skyrim was. I don't think you're going to find it.
Let's see.
But it's a very like wild animal, and when you start comparing different medias to each other, it gets hard to do those comparisons directly, but you can pull some thinking out of it. You can realize like this is what the kind of thinking that goes into this kind of stuff, which is what I like most about it.
So these things kind of move around a lot.
You get in the right mindset.
Skyrim says it's about 90 million.
Right.
To be, that's what people have been able to find out the thing. People are estimating, but this is not, we don't know for sure. Estimating around 150 million. Okay, now, so this is where the differences come in. And I bet this is where it's talking about. The obvious things that come to mind immediately is that while a movie is all about capturing these actors in the moment, and then of course having to do the set design and all those things, that does exist, and trying to do that, and then the CGI to get the parts that can't be done realistically around them. Yes, but even the movements and everything have to be coded in, and when you're doing motion capture, the body work of the person on the developer, they're having to sit there and morph the character art that they've made onto this body that they're recording to make it look right. So Sonny Soljic, he actually does look quite a bit like Atreus,
right?
which is good. I mean, that helps them be able to kind of cross that line. But then you have examples of like, and she's a short lady, but I can't remember her last name. I think it's Ashley is her first name. The woman who did Ellie in The Last of Us. Ellie was a kid, and this is, of course,
Ashley Johnson, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. So in that case, you're looking at a kid in a video game, but they're having to take the motion capture of a full-grown adult and pull that down to a kid's body. But the developers do all the rest of that as well. They're having to digitally create this map room, and it's like the closest thing you have to a developer in the movie world would be like cameraman and stuff, but they're just not. You can't equally go across them.
Right.
So I get it. I mean, they are comparable in a lot of ways because they're both entertainment industry, and there's a lot of, well, for you to use this, you've got to pay us this much. And that's a big thing in gaming is middleware. How much of that money goes towards middleware? How much of it goes to the game engine?
Also, with gaming and stuff, there's typically more forgiveness in having to reshoot something. Like if you blow a shot out or something and the motion cap actor accidentally messes up, there's not. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot. You can go back and
you can keyframe animate. And fix it. Yeah.
So like I don't remember what I was reading, but I remember somebody on an Ask Reddit thing they were doing. Somebody said like, "What is the biggest mistake you've made in less than 10 seconds?" And dude was an extra on set of a movie, and he wouldn't tell what movie, but he said like he stood out of line for a couple minutes. And he said that he stood out of line just far enough to be in the way of one of the swiveling cameras. And he said that since he did that, there was a car explosion, and that was all supposed to be in the movie. His arm was in the frame. They had to reshoot the entire thing. Cost him $25,000. Yeah. So it was one of those things that's like, you don't have that in video games, I wouldn't think. There might be something equivalent to it, but...
No, not really. Yeah, that's not the same, because you're not having to make real explosions and stuff like that like they tend to do.
We're way past the intended topic of that. So
let's move along. The last thing I wanted to bring up, and this is the last thing I even had on here, we have one more example of a game. Little Nightmares versus Elder Scrolls is one that gave us. It's an example of an indie that they thought shined more than a AAA. That's from Rodney C. over on YouTube. So appreciate you there. And he also mentioned The Long Dark, which is a AAA. It's an indie game. You said you were looking for recommendations, and that's one that he pointed out. It's on sale right now.
Yeah, that's the one like where it's snowy outside and it's a survival game, right?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
I think I've seen it too.
I've looked into that. I was actually waiting for it to go on sale. I'm actually going to check that here in a little bit to see if it is.
And the other thing I want to say is, and I don't know how to say this, but I'm going to call it Koi Live. He's a patron. Thank you, good sir.
Yes, sir.
Corey, Crash, and let's see.
My fellow Hot Ones buddy.
Zeo Neon. Those are a couple of the ones I saw but there was a number of people who came out in support of 3D Sonic, and I just wanted you to know that.
I meant to respond to Kiki when he was saying, he's like, you don't like the 3D Sonic games. I love Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, by the way. I love them. They're good games. Not as good as the 2D ones. And mainly, here's the crazy thing about it. As much as I love Sonic, I would say if you were going to take the 3D games versus the 2D games, you're going to have Mania versus Battle 2 to be the ones that are the best out of both of them. And the ones that would represent each side equally.
Fair.
And Mania is a better game than Battle 2. So
I see. I keep
saying Battle 2, but it's technically Sonic Adventure 2.
It's Sonic Adventure 2 Battle.
Battle was the GameCube rendition version of it that had multiplayer.
So, but I mean, I get where you're going, but it did have multiplayer.
Did the Dreamcast have multiplayer?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, so what was the Battle in?
Different multiplayer though.
Okay.
The multiplayer, it is
$11.99.
I have to remember that, but I'm fairly positive the Dreamcast, because I don't think I ever played Battle. Like I never played because I didn't have. I didn't have a GameCube at that point. I'd already played Sonic Adventure on Dreamcast.
We played it on the GameCube. I never played the multiplayer mode for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that is. So weird. But I'll go ahead and hop into the drop if we're done with that. And this one's quite lengthy, so buckle in, get a snack, and if you didn't know what it is of course this week's PlayStation releases across all of its platforms. First up on the list, we have Angry Birds VR Isle of Pigs for PSVR, Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered for PS4, Block of Pix Deluxe for PS4 and PS Vita, a cross-buy title, Cave Diggers Riches for PSVR, Counterfight for PSVR, Dracula's Legacy for PS4, The End is Nigh for PS4, Generation Zero for PS4, Gods Remastered for PS4, Infernal Climber Reborn for PS4, Legendary 11 for PS4, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel for PS4. That's the first time this game's come to PS4, isn't it?
I think so.
Metagal for PS4 and PS Vita, another cross-buy title. MLB The Show 2019 for PS4. Nelk and the Legendary Alchemist for PS4. I don't even know where Adventure came from. Outward, which I know Sean's been looking forward to for PS4. And another game Sean's been looking forward to is Path of Exile for PS4.
Path of Exile finally hitting.
Finally. We have Far Lap Horse Racing Challenge for PS4. The Princess Guide for PS4. SON, or Sun, for PS4. 7 Enhanced Edition for PS4. Cyrilum 3 for PS4. Skyworld for PSVR. Space Junkies for PSVR. Tales of the Fragmented Star, single fragment version for PSVR.
God, that's a long name.
Yeah. War Theater for PS Vita. It is a cross-buy title, but it doesn't say if it's cross-buy with PS4 or not. Okay.
It is. That was the one that came out last week on PS4, and it just wasn't ready for Vita yet. Or 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Warhammer 40,000 Space Wolf for PS4. War Party for PS4. Where the Bees Make Honey for PS4.
Okay.
Xenon Racer for PS4.
Don't you mean Girl of the 21st Century?
Yeah. Dang. I can't remember the theme song. No, not the theme song, but what is it?
I don't know, man. Those DComs were their own little world.
What?
Digichannel original movie, DCom.
I've never
You ever heard of them called that?
No.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, they're good too. Amy did not know that the guy who played famous Joe Jackson committed suicide.
Oh, yes. He was also on Scrubs.
That's
Is
where,
that where it came from?
That's where it came from, yeah.
I had a feeling. All right, let's
also,
see.
Little side bit about Scrubs, they skipped interns and went straight to med school. Like on Netflix, when it was on Netflix, it would play in order, and it would have interns and then med school. It just skipped interns on Hulu.
What do you mean interns?
It had Scrub interns, which is like the 4 or 5 episodes, the one I always said were terrible, with just the interns before they brought JD and them back.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen those.
It's a thing, and they completely skipped them out. On Hulu, it used to go in complete order, and just or no, not Hulu. I'm sorry. On Netflix, it used to.
I watched them all on Netflix, and I don't know that it was there. That's interesting.
Scrubs interns, and it's this.
I'll have to look and see.
Oh, okay. So maybe JD is.
I'm about to say I thought JD was in it from the get-go,
but it's focusing on the main 4 actors that aren't even in med school, except for Denise.
Yeah.
So, because they have,
I do like Denise.
Lucy, I think is her name.
Yeah, Lucy's the new JD, as I call it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do like Denise too.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But this is not a Scrubs podcast, so we could make a Scrubs podcast. I love that show.
We could.
Now it's funny we brought up DComs because of course I have a little tidbit. It's not what I have in here, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Mortal Kombat has announced its first post-launch DLC character, and it is no other than Shang Tsung, reprising his role from the 90s movies and most recently the TV series that I've yet to watch, Mortal Kombat Legacy. Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa will be the model and voice actor for the character. And if you don't know any of those things, then you may know him as Johnny... No, hold on. Was it Johnny Capahalas or was it Johnny Tsunami? So yeah, Johnny Tsunami was Johnny Capahala, right? It's his grandpa in the Johnny Capahala movies.
What is Johnny Capahala?
Johnny Tsunami, and then they had Johnny Capahala back on board where he goes from being... Johnny Tsunami moves from being a surfer and then he goes into being a ski person. Like, he starts snowboarding or whatever.
Isn't it the same person?
That's the first movie. Then the second movie's back on board where I think he learns to skateboard.
But I'm saying it's the same person.
Yeah, it's the same. Well, the actor for his grandpa is right here. Bam.
But is it Johnny Tsunami?
Yes.
Why does his name change?
Well, Johnny Tsunami was just like a dumb name.
I really thought that was his real name in that show.
And then they came back to his name is Johnny Capahala.
Because he was snowboarding in the first one, and then
yes,
okay, and then there's a second with him skateboarding.
Yes, I'm fairly positive as to what back on board was.
Back to PlayStation, please. That's just disappointing. For
there
me.
We are, right here. Johnny Capahala back on board. That's it.
Man, for us having to be done in like 40 minutes.
I feel like I think that we got told by my wife I needed to be done in a certain amount of time. I think it set off our inner man to screw around thing. So sorry, we need to keep going. Months back, we saw word of a mystery title in Persona 5R, which Chad thought was going to be Persona 5 Racing. I never really thought so, but I just hope for his sake that was going to be it. Well, it looks like the R stands for the Royale, as the game has been officially announced as such. Not much info is given otherwise outside of the likelihood of a new character, and that more details would be coming on April 24th. So this does come right on the heels of Persona 5 being announced for the PlayStation Hits lineup, which means that the base game of Persona 5 is now $20. So if you haven't played it and you want to, I'm one of those people. It's a good time to go about getting it. But with that said...
Does anybody play Brawlhalla anymore?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it does pretty well. You know, they
well, for a while there, it was actually not too high. It was not too low on Twitch. Like people
they
were
absorbed
watching.
into Ubisoft. If you remember, the indie developer went into Ubisoft. But with that said, I'm curious as to what this is. The obvious joke is that it's a battle royale game, but it's obviously not.
It's not. Yeah, I don't think that.
So we'll see what's going to end up happening. It seems like it's their take on Persona 4 Golden. You know, it's supposed to be like some kind of extension with new content and stuff like that in it. So next up, Smash-like game Brawlhalla that Saul was just talking about. We'll be adding characters from Hellboy to the lineup next month, with 4 characters from the upcoming movie being added to the roster, one being Hellboy himself. So if you want to check those out, you can go see those. A sequel that surprised many fans of the original was announced this week in the way of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, a follow-up to a little-known but cult classic game from 2004 that was called, of course, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. The sequel is planning to release in Q1 of 2020 and has plans for post-launch support well into that year. So I know Liam was very excited about that. Never played the game. Do remember seeing it. Remember hearing about it. Just don't know anything else about it. Next up, though, a possible release date for Remedy Entertainment's Control was leaked a few weeks back, with Remedy now confirming that the leak was real. So the game will be releasing on August 27th, 2019. So it's a pretty good post E3 release. One of the first ones that we really know about. You know, we've had a couple of leaks. We're going to see if any of them turn out to be real. But next up, long after the Handsome Collection released and after multiple teases and foreign ratings throughout the years, and I mean throughout the years, there's like last year they got rated somewhere, Borderlands 1 appears to be finally joining current-gen consoles. So Borderlands Game of the Year Edition has been rated for release by the ESRB. This lines up with the recent teases that Gearbox did where they were showing different teases that they were going to be doing throughout their announcement at I can't remember where it was going to be. PAX. Okay, so they did one that looks like it's teasing Borderlands 3, one that is Borderlands 2 in some form or fashion, which I think is probably Borderlands Switch. That seems like the most reasonable way to Borderlands 2 on Switch.
Yeah.
Considering it came to Vita, it's not that weird to think that they would find a way to put it onto the Switch as well. It may even be the whole Handsome Collection. I doubt it, but maybe.
Because it had performance problems on Vita, didn't it? Like really bad ones.
Early on, but
and then
I got to give and they updated that game up to a year after it released. Iron Galaxy Studios. That is the studio that... do you remember the guy who was doing... and I got to remember, I think it's Andy or Adam. It must be Adam. Anyway, yeah, Adam Boyes. He was the one who was with Shuhei in the video during the E3 of PlayStation 4, where he was like, this is how you share games on PlayStation 4. And he's like, hey, can I borrow your game? And he handed it to him. So Adam Boyes was their person who came out and handled a lot of their little smaller announcements that they would do. And he was their, I can't remember exactly what he was. I think he was like their...
like spokesperson, right?
I don't know what you'd call them, but essentially handled trying to get games from other developers coming in. I don't remember the wording for it, but he left and went to Iron Galaxy Studios.
Gotcha.
Which is the people who did that.
If they fixed from at least what I saw.
I have it. It plays all right now.
Does it?
I mean, it's not perfect. It still has some frame drops in the mid-20s, but it's not bad. You know, it's playable, but you know, think about that. If they got it to run that way on the Switch, I mean, on the Vita, they'd be able to run it on Switch even better. Yeah, realistically speaking. So that's one of those interesting things. Let's see. Next up, yet another backwards compatibility patent from Sony has gone public. Now you can see that patent over on Jack of All Controllers, and I actually got to give it to Ryan. He is the first person I saw post that, and I mean, I really looked around new stuff by about a 2-day lead. So our boys
credited
doing good
on N4G.
Nice.
So Jack of All Controllers, the website we were talking about earlier in the episode, this was all on that, and they were sourced.
So this other patent has gone public with a 2017 filing from Mark Cerny discussing the use of a new CPU to run in a restricted mode and with select features disabled for the system to run in backwards compatibility mode. It specifically shows this on the patent, which is pretty interesting. This still doesn't confirm that the PS5 will be backwards compatible, but does reinforce the fact that Sony has given it the due diligence of the matter. So I feel like this means that they are likely going to do some form of backwards compatibility, but these are, just to keep in mind, these are back-end things that they're doing. They're patents. Most patents don't ever actually get used.
What was the guy of the name? What was the name of the guy who made the cell processor again?
Ken Kutaragi.
I wonder if he could, like, not reverse engineer it, but create a new processor that would be able to...
I don't know for sure, but I think that whenever he left as president or whatever, I think that he went to the board. So I think he is on the board of Sony.
Okay. Because it would make sense that if he could make the cell processor, if he could make a new processor that could emulate it.
Well, I think what it comes down to is that he can make a new one, but if they're making processors, they have to work with. They were working with IBM at the time to make the processors. It's that they're trying to do it cheaply by going through AMD. Now they can work with AMD to try and get as close to possible with looking at the Navi or whatever they're going to be using, the Zen, Navi, whatever, and try and figure out the best way to go through it. I guess technically
probably Navi.
Yeah, it would be.
But I think it is Navi.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be one of those interesting things. They technically could, I guess, but I don't know that he would. I don't even know that Ken still does any kind of hardware development. I don't know. That's just that's not really my area of expertise. So, anyway, moving along. After the arrest of one of the game's actors, Sega pulled judgment from Japanese retailers. This is a game that's set in the Yakuza world, and many worried it would affect the Western release. The developers come out to clear those worries, saying that the release is still on track for June 25th in the West, but it will feature a new character model and Japanese voice for the character that the actor who portrayed, sadly.
Did he get arrested for being in a Yakuza?
That'd be funny, wouldn't it? He got arrested for, I think, cocaine.
Oh.
And apparently, I didn't know this. This is like a really big deal in Japan. Like they don't play with it.
Dude, Japan doesn't play around with anything.
That's just so crazy because like you remember the dude who played, I can't remember his name, I think Charlie or whatever in Stranger Things. He got found with I think he was smuggling cocaine in his butt or something, and he got detained and deported. So
Charlie. It
may not be Charlie, the guy who plays Will's older brother in Stranger Things.
Oh,
I think it's Charlie.
It's not.
I guess I'm wrong, but
yeah, I was gonna say because people want him to play something in the new Marvel MCU universe because they want John Krasinski and his wife, I can't think of her name right now, to be Mr. and Mrs. Fantastic.
Oh, his name is Charlie, but he plays Jonathan.
Okay, I was like, there's nobody that show named Charlie. I remember.
Apparently, I knew his real name. So yeah, he got deported because of some crazy stuff. But anyway. Moving along, it's just interesting that it would affect it that way. To the point that they would pull his character model. That's crazy. But I guess the character model probably looks like the actor, and then the voice would be weird if it didn't match. So
yeah, might as well just pull both.
Might as well. What I'm wondering is how much is that going to affect you? Because the game was already on sale before they pulled it. How much are the copies that were sold with the original actor? How much are those going to spike up in cost?
Probably a lot.
That's going to be a collector's thing for people who love these. Hakuto, your boy, needs to get on this. He loves the Yakuza series. Next up, Konami continues riding its legacy as they announced 3 different anniversary collections. One for arcade classics coming April 18th, one for the Castlevania series, and one for the Contra series, both aimed at early summer 2019. They have about 4 or 5 games each collection. Pretty interesting. I mean, we haven't seen Konami do much outside of this, and I guess we saw them do Metal Gear Survive, but
unfortunately,
they're not only their little pachinko machines or whatever, but at this point, it's just I'm curious as we'll ever see another big game from them. But I think they'd be smart too. They're utilizing their IP in a lot of good ways. They're doing Castlevania on Netflix, so it's I can see why they're still technically making money off of all their IP. There's no reason for them to, but it would be great if they would license out their IP to other developers, and even if they don't want to worry about doing them in-house anymore.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next thing. Just weeks after they announced the end of PS Vita production, Hulu's app for the system has been removed from the store, as well as reportedly no longer functioning at all for those who already had it installed. Sleep tight, dear Prince, RIP.
Is the Hulu the last nail in the coffin?
Nah.
So I hope not.
No, because we're getting new releases, man. War Theater just released for it. It's just that Hulu didn't have the strength. I will say I'm extremely disappointed in this. There's no reason to keep the already functioning app from working. Really, there's no even reason to pull it from the store.
Probably
but
contractual reasons.
If you want to pull it from the store, I doubt it, man. They haven't updated the UI for the app in forever anyway. So it's just like when you're watching Netflix on the 3DS. They don't update that thing. It's like
maybe they're preparing to unveil a new handheld, and they want everybody to stop using the Vita and just let it die off like they wanted it to 3 years ago.
I hate to tell you, that's not going to happen.
They wanted it to. They tried.
The Vita tribe are too loyal. It's really crazy.
Vita Island.
All right, let's see. Next up, Dungeon Defenders, a last-gen indie game, is coming back with a sequel thanks to Chromatic Games acquiring the IP. The sequel, Dungeon Defenders Awakened, was given a Kickstarter goal of $250,000, which it has now hit and continues to be funded past that. So if you have any interest in that and you want to go check it out, go find that. You can back it and get the game at a discounted price, I would imagine. But if you don't trust Kickstarters, then you can just wait. When the game comes out, you can just buy it normal. After teasing something Castle Crashers related on their Twitter, it's been officially announced that Castle Crashers Remastered is coming to PS4 this summer with a new game mode called Back Off Barbarian. So, interesting little game. I saw Jonathan and Dylan play that on PS3 back whenever we used to all live together, and I never got around to playing it myself, but it looks fun. Next thing, though, Days Gone trophy list has been revealed, and it looks like a fun and reasonably achievable platinum trophy. So if you like PlayStation's little long-running thing of having reasonable platinums on their exclusives, this looks no different. And then lastly, well, I'm gonna do one little thing in here. I think it'd be really hard to go through this entire episode without not talking about Stadia at least once.
Yeah.
And so for anybody who really follows gaming relatively closely, if you don't, then this will fill you in. But Google announced their little game thing, and a lot of people originally were thinking they might be doing a platform, but it makes way more sense for Google to utilize all of their network infrastructure and all the stuff they have to instead do a streaming service. So they announced a streaming service called Stadia. Now, the streaming service has a lot of interesting ideas. One of the things that they can do is a direct tie to YouTube. One of the things they touted was being able to watch a YouTube video of a game, be able to click over on the side of it, play this game now, and be loaded into the game within about 5 seconds if you were on the Stadia platform, if you have it, and are subscribed or however it's going to work. And that it can run up to 4K, 60 frames per second by the time that it launches. Right now, I think it can do 1080p, 60 frames per second. Is what they're touting, but at the same time, what they showed during their playing of Assassin's Creed Odyssey was actually 1080p 30, which was interesting.
Yeah, and they touted 60.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where who knows why, but these are a couple of ideas they had. They talked about being able to bring back couch co-op in a way by instead of current gen consoles having to locally render all those things on multiple instances, the way they'll be able to do it, they're saying that's why a lot of games currently don't have couch co-op, because it's too demanding to be able to do so and be able to keep the games on the cutting edge of technology otherwise.
It's crazy because we did it 15 years ago.
Yeah, but people had more of a care for it 15 years ago. They weren't really worried about the rest
people
of it.
Still have a care
also,
for it.
The other thing is that, but in terms of people didn't care if games looked cutting edge as much as they wanted to play with other people. But a lot of things have changed. One of the things also changed is that consoles aren't as... I'm trying to think of the word. They're not as ambitious as they once were. The PS3 is a very ambitious console.
Which is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, for all of its faults, the PS3 was incredibly ambitious.
A lot of gimmicks.
Yeah,
that we've seen over the last 30 years of video games.
True, but I mean, again, you could say this: the Dreamcast was ambitious. It tried to do a lot. It tried pushing CD technology as far as they could and do a lot of interesting ideas and start online play and stuff. But
I would argue that Dreamcast is probably the most ambitious console.
I mean,
the memory
honestly,
card, the controller,
it was ahead of its time by a lot.
The CD, the way it did CDs and stuff, because they had more on the CDs than any other system at the time, didn't they?
Most people just seem to have forgotten this that I've talked to about it, but the Dreamcast you could literally get on a browser. It was a disc. You had to put a disc that was a browser disc in the Dreamcast.
It's like
it would load up a browser.
Netflix on the Wii, and you had to have a Netflix disc.
Yeah, it was very odd, but you could do it, and it was at a time when people didn't expect to be able to get on a browser again until PlayStation 3 came out with and it had the browser on theirs, because the Xbox 360 didn't have a browser.
I was just about to ask that. Did it ever?
I don't think it ever did.
I don't either.
Yeah, so
and that's sad. That's the thousands of hours I put in that console last year, and I don't remember if that had a browser.
To be fair, who would want to get on a browser in their console? But people did it, definitely for getting custom
I understand
themes
it. You don't have a computer, and
yeah,
let's
it be
have
an
a family
all-in-one
computer in the living room, and you want to look up something that you're not really supposed to be looking up, and then there it is, and it's on your TV.
But I do have a little list I'm going to run through real quick, and it's all feel free to. I think I know that we've talked a little bit about these things.
Yeah, I said some stuff
definitely on the Discord.
I said stuff in Discord about it, and what I'll do is at the end of this, I'll just say my final thoughts on it all, because it's pretty straightforward with my line of thinking for PS Now. I'm gonna get up and stretch.
Okay, a lot of this is really just thoughts, but there are a good bit of concerns in it. So one of the things I think that needs to be thought about, and is a concern that we aren't quite sure that they can handle too well, we just don't know yet, is latency and its effects on the games the service will reasonably be able to play and be useful for, because they can probably play everything, but how tightly and to a point where it feels like you would expect that. So Google is arguably losing out on two big genres with this, and that's the fighting game and the competitive shooters. I would even go as far as to say that racing simulators that require very precise, right in the second movements is another one that you could really throw in there, and it's half of a genre at that point. But we'll kind of talk about that. So not only in the casual scene of these genres, but also the effect of Stadia not being a suitable platform for esports at that point. So professionals do not accept more than absolute minimum in input lag. I think everybody knows that, to the point where they often use wired controllers to minimize latency as much as possible.
Yeah, that was very people loved Sony for announcing that you could do that with the PlayStation controllers now.
Exactly, and I want to say this as well. I think they've somewhat talked about wanting to get latency down as low as possible. One of the things that they're doing in that regard is that they've announced that the controller will be connecting to Wi-Fi instead of any kind of a system. There's no local hardware.
Which is ironic.
If you're playing on a TV, it does use a Google Chromecast, but that's not really local hardware. It's just a in between, because a TV doesn't naturally have Chrome.
Well, it's doing what it says. It's casting your screen or phone or laptop or whatever to your TV.
In that case, the reason that the controller connects to Wi-Fi is to not have to go from the controller to a system that's also on Wi-Fi, so that you don't incur a latency from that as well. So they're trying to work on that, but that's something to think about. And we don't know why, but we saw during the thing, if you go and look, there's a clip that has been shared. I think Richard sent it to us, Xeon or Neox Xeon or something on Twitter. It's different, but it shows when they're playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey and he's going to switch off, he's hitting A, and it takes about 2.5 seconds to respond to what he did. Yeah, and he keeps tapping
it. Too,
and it finally works, and you could tell it's like, oh, but we don't know what was going on there. But it's something to keep in mind, and it did. I'm glad that it was there, because it showcased a major concern that some people might have not really thought of as quickly. Data caps is the next thing. This is something that's really pertinent to our area.
No, it's pertinent to a lot of areas.
Oh, it is.
Every area you could pay to have more an unlimited data cap, like we can.
We can't pay for unlimited, or at least we couldn't.
Yeah, you can.
I think we can now that we have Gigabyte, but we didn't have Gigabyte.
We do not have Gigabyte though.
Yes, our area does.
We don't. I'm saying me and you personally don't.
Oh yeah, we don't pay for it.
Cable One also doesn't have Gigabyte.
I mean, yeah, Gigabyte is Cable One's Giga service.
You're thinking of their fiber service.
Well, I mean, but that's their top speed service that you can get great. You can actually get reasonable upload speeds and stuff out of.
We don't have that.
Well, we don't have that, but as far as I know, we have the ability.
No, we don't. Like, me and you have the highest the package we can get.
Well, as a Cable One, but Gigabyte is different in the way it works. I'll have to talk to you about it later, because I've called them and talked to them about it. But I'll talk to you about it later. But data caps comes in. Me and Saul are at the highest saying we cannot pay for unlimited. There is no unlimited option in Cable One in our area. The only unlimited option we have would be Windstream. But our Windstream speeds in this area,
oh boy,
they claim 10 megabytes per second in most places. My area, if I got Windstream right now, 2 days,
they don't claim that, by the way.
It's 10.
They claim 50.
They claim 10.
No, they have that new service that they're sponsoring.
I called not even that long ago. 10 at my house.
I got a brochure in the mail that says 50.
I got a brochure in the mail that says 100.
Oh, well.
Called? Oh, in your area, all we offer is 10 megabytes per second. Gotcha. That's all they have.
Well, I'm talking about, I know they don't offer anything. For those that don't know, this internet service is so terrible that when I was playing Grand Theft Auto 5 with friends, I could not hop into a party chat and play with them at the same time, or my internet would shut off.
That's odd.
It would lag me out.
But that's my point, is that there are the only unlimited option we have here is this very, very subpar internet. And actually, even though they say 10 megabits per second, when we had it here prior to Cable One, our average speed was about 4.2, which doesn't even hit the 5 megabytes per second minimum that they say that you need.
They have raised our data cap.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
950 now, I think?
900.
Okay.
Yeah. From 700.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope it's free.
Yeah.
They do have Giga One. $175 a month.
Yes. But look at those upload speeds, boy.
You realize Kiki has that where he lives, and it's like 60. I think he said $60 or $70 a month.
Yeah, but it's also through Comcast.
I don't care.
We don't have. That's what I'm saying. And this is something else we're talking about, but that gets into the argument of ISP monopolies. That's a bad thing in a lot of areas.
Which is what we have.
Yeah, Cable One is the only ISP that's really a reasonable option here.
There's Cable One, there's
and they know that.
And then there's the other company that's sponsored or owned by Windstream that trick people into thinking it's not Windstream. Yeah,
but it's Windstream. It's essentially the what are those? What's the phones that you can get from whatever? Oh Lord, what are they called? Straight Talk or whatever. That's essentially just bouncing off of people are like, I don't like AT&T. I have Straight Talk. In terms of like AT&T service,
it's
sucks.
the same thing.
It's like I hate to tell you, they use AT&T's towers.
It's Straight Talk and there's another prepaid phone service that uses AT&T service.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. But okay, so getting back into data caps, and this one's important. So 4K streaming on Netflix, and this is just an example that we have that's real. 4K streaming on Netflix equates to about 11.25 gigabytes an hour. The numbers could be different in this situation. There was a screenshot that someone shared, which we don't know if it's true or not, but it said 20 gigabytes per hour could be expected for gameplay, which might be true considering that there's other stuff going on that Netflix doesn't really involve with. But the problem there is that can we really expect these internet service providers across the board to abandon their data caps if they do have them, like we have here? And if so, what cost does that incur? Because like right now, if we wanted to get a truly unlimited option, I don't even know if it's truly unlimited, is it?
When I called them and
1,500 gigs.
1,500 gigs is their limit.
So they don't even have unlimited.
But when I called them and asked them to about like just I was gonna buy my own modem because I've had it for like 3 years now and I've been like leasing it or whatever. I might as well buy my own. They had an offer on the phone and they were like, well, we noticed that you have the streamer plan now, and they were like, do you want to go ahead and add unlimited data for an extra? I think they said $45 more a month. But what's weird? Look at this. This is what I have. $45 a month is roughly in there.
Yeah.
So that has 1,500 gigs of a limit. So I don't know if that's like a special thing they have going on or if that's something they're testing.
Well, sometimes they'll do retention things. They may be going, oh, he's nickel and diming about this. He may be wanting to leave us because of our data cap. But if we offer an unlimited for an upcharge, you never know. Different things happen.
I guess so. I didn't think.
Every company's got retention things where they go through and look and be like, oh, in case we think he might be threatening to leave us, or if he does actually threaten to leave us, these are the options that we can employ to try and get him to stay as a customer. But
that makes sense.
That happens with cell phones too. You can normally get them to lower your bill a little bit if they think you're going to leave, because they'd rather get most of your business and even lose $10 a month if it's going to make you happy.
Well, they've tried to force us out of our grandfathered unlimited data before. Yeah. That didn't happen.
So anyway, that's just something to think about. And just because I want to give everybody a frame of mind here, they talk about on Google, we're talking about like, oh, no more of this. And they showed the little downloading bar. But there's a lot of things that I think modern gaming's already done to fix that. If you pre-order a game, you get to early download it. You can go ahead and preload it. If you buy a game off of your phone, like Saul often does when he's at work, he sees a game on sale or something, he'll buy a game digitally on his and say download to PS4. It'll turn the system on, start down, or it just does it in sleep.
There's also a misconception there too, because if you download a 50 gigabyte game, you're not using 50 gigs of data either.
Yeah.
People think that like if you go digital, you're going to use up all your data. You're not like going to use it's a difference, and it's not major.
It's not major,
but it is a difference.
It's like if it says it's a 50 gig game, realistically, it's like 47 gigs.
No, it's lower than that. It's like 41 or 2.
Not my experience. I've calculated even on
I've calculated
Steam,
it before. Like me and Annie went through because we went through and we looked at how much it is to like use Netflix at 1080p.
Yep.
And then we looked at all the games I downloaded and I added all those up, and it was not 700 gigs.
And you hit your data cap? Or what?
No, I didn't hit my data cap.
Okay,
we were just trying to see how far we can get and how far we normally get.
Yeah, exactly. But even then, this is something to think about, and this is where this would affect us. All right, so instead of just downloading a game like Sekiro, which right now people are saying they can get around 50 hours out of, right? Or at least from what I've seen is about 50 hours. Let's just say 40, all right? That game is 18 gigabytes. Now, if you were to stream that game 40 hours at 4K 60, let's just say that's how they did it, and you were doing that, then you know what would be happening there? You would be doing, let's just use the 11.25 gigs, right?
I've already looked, so yeah.
Yeah. You would be doing 450 gigabytes versus just downloading it for 18 gigs.
That's for one game that you've been playing for 40 hours per month, on top of things you're not counting in, like Netflix.
Yeah.
Actually downloading games.
Is your child watching Netflix while you're streaming?
I was going to say, or browsing Reddit and stuff, which that stuff doesn't really add up. That you have to do a whole lot, but it's still there.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on to these next few, just real quick. ISP outages. This is something Saul talks about a lot, and it happens to a lot of people. Similar to an all-digital Xbox that hasn't been set as a home console and turned into offline mode before being disconnected from the internet, losing the ability to play just because your network goes out from bad ISPs can be a frustrating thing when it happens right in the middle of when the only gaming time you have. Saul's often talked about, I sat down, it's the only time I had the game, was going to play Destiny, was excited to do so, internet didn't work, couldn't play my game. A game like Destiny is not a perfect example because it literally requires internet, but let's just say...
No, one was Rainbow Six. Like, I wanted to just play Terrorist Hunt, and you can't even play Terrorist Hunt.
Because of the way the game is... And then that's more on the developer, but let's just say it this way.
Well, I'm just saying in relation to, like, having this online streaming thing is that, like...
Yeah, it's already bad enough, though, that you couldn't play the one game you wanted because of not having internet. Imagine not being able to play any of your games.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to play Stadia at all. Now, the other flip side of that is that I'm not bashing on my ISP that much. Like, they're pretty good for us around here. We have a pretty good plan compared to, like, what a lot of other Americans have that are in smaller cities comparable to ours.
Yep.
But there's been more times in which PlayStation is down. So, like, that's something that people are also thinking about is, like...
What happens if Stadia actually goes down?
Well, if you go look into Google Fi in terms of, like, a phone plan, they're not that good.
Well, Google Fi also runs off of Sprint and stuff towers.
Which is even worse.
Yeah.
So, we don't know what their infrastructure is going to run off of either for their internet, for Stadia. I see you have something going on that you need to go to.
No, I'll talk to you about it later.
Is your phone messing up?
No, it's not really. It's one of those weird things I told you about that the other day. But anyway, where I was getting at with that, though, is that, of course, you lose the ability to play because of that. Now, the other flip side of that is that the introduction of 5G would be able to kind of alleviate that. If your internet provider goes out at your home for some reason, you can use your phone's 5G to play within reason. But that also comes back into the idea of data caps. Almost every phone, I have unlimited, right, on my phone, but they still have a stipulation in their thing that says, if you use over 25 gigs of data in a month, we can choose to throttle your speeds. So
I was looking into this on this website on Ars Technica about Stadia to see if they had, like, somebody test the internet or something while they were there to see, like, what kind of speeds we're looking at. And, like, there's just subtitles for this stupid song that plays saying droning didgeridoo music. Didgeridoo. Oh, yeah, that is didgeridoo, isn't it? Carry on. But anyways, they say 20 to 30 megabytes per second, which is what they said in the thing. Mm-hmm. So unless they had a lot of people connected to the same network and it was just holding them down, I'm kind of worried about that. Because,
the latency thing?
Yeah.
Well, the reason I even said that, because Blake said the same thing. He said maybe a lot of people were on these internet, or on that internet, and the network was being drowned down. If you know that you're going to show off something that entirely is related on
Bring
internet,
a separate network.
You would have a private network specifically set up for that.
I know this is going to affect maybe people that go, but like, or not have public networks for them to connect to.
Yeah. That's true too, but I mean, it's Google. They can have a private network, even if it's just, if they saying that this can run off of 5G. Well, no, have a private 5G.
That's
network.
What I'm saying is that there's no excuse because you can
bandwidth is a thing. So if everybody else is on their phones, it would still slow it down. But my point being is that they should have been able to show a way to have a private hardline network just to show this off, just so they know that it showed off.
Wasn't there like an iPhone thing, like where people were on the Wi-Fi, and like Steve Jobs had to tell people to turn off the Wi-Fi? That would have been funny if that happened.
Yeah, he told everybody, and everybody thought he was joking. He's like, "No, I'm for real. Turn your phone off."
And something worked, and I can't remember what it was. It was
FaceTime, is what he was trying to show off.
Was it?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. I thought it was for the first iPhone. That's not something on the first iPhone.
We'll move the rest of this. The other thing I think, and this is the last two things are kind of tied in together. They have a lack of pedigree in this industry, but they have a strong ecosystem. These are kind of like a double-sided. So they have no history in the gaming market proper. They've attempted to address this by hiring in industry veterans, like they did with, and I can't remember her name, either of those, but the two people they brought out to talk about the thing, I think Jade Ramsey was one. I can't remember the other guy's name. But these are people who've been in the gaming industry for a long time. So they're obviously thinking about that. But regardless of what they're trying to do to fill out these ranks of the Stadia team, it is still an industry that's way more mature than the last time that someone tried to break into the mainstream market. PlayStation and Xbox were the most recent examples of someone actually successfully breaking in. And for them, it's one of those things where it's consumers need to have comfort and know that they can trust you. And Google's brand helps this because of the fact that people know Google and then they can tie into all these things. And this ties back into something Saul was talking about before with PlayStation Now, is that, or PlayStation Plus, and then being able to put in PlayStation Now, PlayStation View, is that they do have the ability to make this all work within their ecosystem like they're talking about, being able to do this on YouTube, being able to stream to YouTube at 4K 60 while you're streaming 4K 60 to your TV so that you can do those things at the same time. These are things they can do, but we don't know how well they'll do it. We don't have any reason in the gaming market
all over the same network. That sounds rough.
I don't know, because it's not supposed to be that.
60.
Not from you. That's supposed to be happening from Stadia's side.
Right. No, I know that. But I'm saying, like, here's the thing, is that if Stadia's outputting this to me, and then I'm outputting it to YouTube.
No,
Twitch.
the YouTube thing happens on Stadia's side.
You're not listening, though. Is YouTube going to be the only streaming company that is going to allow you to output in 4K?
What do you mean to output? Like if you're
Because streaming has bitrate limits.
Yes.
Imagine the bitrate streaming in 4K.
YouTube right now doesn't even have bitrate limits.
So Twitch.
Twitch does.
So
but Twitch only does if you're not only if you're
like not partnered
with them or something like that. Yeah.
So here's the thing, though, is that I'm wondering is that if all these people who are doing this and testing out this service on day one, big streamers who have thousands and thousands of people watching, I wonder if that's going to hurt these platforms. Like for the first day or so. Like I wonder if that the bandwidth for that streaming on there using up, I don't know what it is. I know it's thousands of bits to stream 4K.
Yeah, well, it's going to it. Now, the thing is variable bit rate. That's actually what Twitch doesn't support. If you're not partnered, your people don't have the ability to watch at a variable bit rate. So they have to watch at what you're outputting at.
Well, I'm just talking about the amount of partners that will be playing.
YouTube would say, okay, well, you're going to 4K 60. Well, okay, right now, only 20% of the YouTube base can actually watch at 4K 60. So the rest of the people are going to choose to watch anywhere from 360p to 1080p. And so I get what you mean, though.
It's a weird limiter that not a lot of people are aware of.
Yeah, so you're meaning on YouTube's side of the network, and in this specific time we have to say YouTube because it's exclusive.
Well, you also mentioned the back end of Stadia streaming to YouTube is from just at the back end of Stadia. Too, so
it's not from your network. So I know what you're talking about though. Stadia streams to your home from your network, and then Stadia from its network streams to YouTube. Yeah,
and then so that's one of those weird things too, is that I'm wondering if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't know. The last thing I'll say in this is how invested in this is Google. If this comes out of the gate and doesn't set the world on fire, will they just abandon it as they've done other things in the past?
Yeah, Google has 5,
and they try
6,
a lot, you know.
I hate saying the word failed because they were successful to an extent, but they weren't successful in their eyes, so they were failed.
They're not. It's kind of like the Zune for Microsoft. It's not that nobody had them; it's that they still didn't break any of the real market share away from iTunes.
Well, it's like Google Glass, the Nexus line of phones that got absorbed into Huawei. No,
the Nexus lines of phones just got axed. Yeah, and then they said, "Well, we're going to start doing," which I mean, that was a little different.
6P.
Because at that point in their mind, they're like, well, we're just going to make our own phones.
Right.
But the phones is a perfect example of them trying their asses off realistically.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is that the reception right now for those aren't good at all.
Yeah, exactly.
The
they have quality problems. Yeah, and they look great on paper, but
Google
they never
Fi, their phone network system is not looking good.
Mm-hmm. What was the other thing that they were doing where they were going through originally? And I brought up why don't they become their own ISP? They technically did this a little bit. I can't remember what it was called. Do you remember when Google was going through cities and putting in
Google Fiber?
Google Fiber, yeah.
It's called Google Fiber.
I just remembered the name. Yeah.
I was like, is this where he doesn't know how to say or doesn't know the word euros?
Fibre, yeah. That was just a brain lapse. As soon as you told me, I was like, oh man.
I was like, it's literally because you said like a cent shape. I'm like, I looked at the camera. I'm like, I really want to say it's the shape of an E for
this
Euro.
is definitely a dual topic episode, but we need to hurry up.
But one last thing though is that, or at least on that part, is Google Wallet failed completely.
And then they just shut it down, right?
Yeah, I don't remember what the outcome of that was because I used to have the card that was just a white debit card that had Google Wallet on it with a number. But at least my final thoughts on it are the same as the PlayStation Now. I think it's a cool idea. We talked about the shadow streaming service, which is something that you can go by right now that is offering the same thing. It doesn't work as well as you might think it does, and I can't imagine Google being too far ahead of it. I'm sure with Google's infrastructure, it'll be so much stronger, but this kind of technology is out there, and we see it right now. There was flaws at the showcase, so my mind process right now is that it's going to be hard to justify saying any kind of excuse about that, because at that point in time, they could either say that, it's because of due to people in the room and they could never properly show off how bad it really is, because that's an excuse that can be used universally, or they can actually pop it out with their own network and show it all the way, and that kind of network be fiber or gigabit fiber or internet. That's not something everybody's going to have.
Yeah.
And right now it's just the input lag. You can't play mouse and keyboard at all really with that kind of input lag. Controller makes it a little bit better.
Yeah, and actually there was a thing where someone talked about that. They said when they moved from playing Doom specifically, so they were bragging saying, "Oh, well, we can play Doom, and what better way to show you how great this is than Doom? Because Doom requires smoothness." And then of course, what happens? A lot of people who were able to go and play it said, "Well, actually playing on mouse and keyboard just felt off." Yeah, and they were like, moving to a controller made it feel more reasonable because of the more limited thing.
There are a good majority of people who play on PC. Who are like hardcore PC gamers would rather have a wired mouse than a wireless mouse for milliseconds of input lag.
Exactly.
They're not going to want seconds of actual lag. The 3-second lag for the button press, or 2-second lag, I think is what it really came down to, is ridiculous. So for me, it's a cool idea, and pretty much, if you heard me talk about PlayStation Now, it's a cool idea that's not ready yet, not due to the nature of the company making it, but due to the nature of the current limiters in its market, which is ISP.
Yeah. And it's funny.
ISPs
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say too, a lot of people are acting like this is new. The only thing that Google's doing new here is the back-end features, being able to stream to YouTube right off the thing, being able to click a video and stream into it in 5 seconds. To be dead honest, this is no different than what PlayStation was trying to do started 5 years ago with PlayStation Now.
Yeah.
This is not new. It's just Google's take on it. And it's not saying it's going to be bad. I'm going to try it. I mean, I'm definitely curious to see how it is, but it will never replace my console. I want local side processing to have the smoothest experience that I can. And the thing is, no matter what you do, and there's a Digital Foundry video that's great for this, go check it out and talk about it. No matter how much they want to say about 4K and 60 frames per second, that will never be as good as 4K 60 frames or even 4K 30 frames on a TV that's going from local hardware, because you get streaming artifacts. It's just a problem. It exists. But go ahead, Saul.
I was going to say that
pricing.
Yeah, the pricing is something that I am really curious about, because like looking at the one that I said it a couple weeks back, where Linus Tech Tips actually did a video on this, where there was no input lag. Like the system they were using to monitor input lag couldn't even monitor any. It's like $35 a month for the best plan.
Saul, I hate to say it, but we've got to wrap it up. So this is one of those things where we ranted a little bit badly, but go ahead, finish. I'm just telling you that we're like at the edge.
Well,
but it's cool. Finish this up and we'll run through the because I mean, it's gonna be a slight dual topic. We ended up talking about Stadia more. But
yeah, it depends on the pricing. So I'll say that much. It depends on the pricing, but cool tech's there. It's not something I could be excited for, because I already have it with PlayStation Now. I don't use it.
Similar take is what we did on PS Now. It costs too much to feel justifiable for a lesser experience.
Way too expensive for what it is, in my opinion.
For us. But also, I don't think we benefit from the streaming aspect as much as many, because we have the option here. I think the people, because we talked about PS Now having surprisingly good numbers, is that like there are people who obviously need that. Like, well, we just don't have the ability to play. Being able to pull my phone out or my computer out or whatever it be and do PlayStation Now is great. Being able to pull your phone out and remote play from your PS4 now is great when you don't have to carry out all these things. And that's all streaming. I mean, remote play is nothing but streaming. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, we've seen it all before, and there's reasons that people have not picked it up big yet. Google might be able to figure those things out, but it seems like it's out of Google's hands as to whether these things work right. It's more in the hands of ISPs and whatnot. So, with that said, though, we're going to go into the final bit of this, and we're going to be a little rushed on it. That's our fault. We were kind of rambling this episode, sadly. But State of Play, which is the new thing that Sony has announced they're doing, this is going to be their video showcase debut. We're essentially calling this somewhere between, because we don't know yet, and the reason we did the cold opening the way we did is that we don't know enough about this right now. So the way that PlayStation's saying it, State of Play will be a live broadcast that starts at...
That you guys will probably actually watch before you watch this episode.
Potentially. Yeah, very, very much, very likely. March 25th, that's Monday. The day this episode goes live. 2 p.m. PST, so 2 hours after this goes live, essentially. I
know a lot of people watch this after work and such, too.
Oh, not 2 hours, 4 hours after this goes live.
Oh, yeah, it is. 10 a.m. PST.
So anyway, in that case, what's going on here... A lot of the worry I've seen from some people, but this is a real thing to worry about. Is this something closer to what Saul's talked about, where he wants them to do something that's more scripted and just pre-planned, and it's just a video roll that happens as a live broadcast? So it happens live, but all you're doing is just watching a group of videos. Or are they trying to do something that's a little more close to what Xbox Inside is, which is where I think Xbox Inside is once a month, and they have real people going and talking about these things.
Yeah.
So Saul, which one do you prefer?
Direct.
I thought so.
So for those that don't know,
why?
A Nintendo Direct is these little events they do. They're in our average anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes long. And like what Brett said, they're pre-recorded. They just stream them live on YouTube. You don't know when they're coming out except like the day before. So they're fun little surprises that pop up. And they generally reveal big things. And it's really cool because there's there is almost an uncertainty on when you'll see one again. And before you know it, they'll be like, oh, there's one here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Like, oh, cool. And then the speculation begins, and it's fun to speculate. And obviously, with the slow stuff going in right now in this current year, you're not going to see a whole lot, but I'm sure that the first couple could have some pretty cool news in them. So I love Nintendo Directs. They're really, really cool. I really agree with that format of video. And I really hope that's what these are.
And so not clogging it up with somebody trying to
I'm not a fan.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of like somebody on a stage, somebody interviewing somebody. Typically, directs, they're just literally 2, maybe 3 hosts maybe 2 hosts for each direct, and it's all pre-recorded. There's no jibber jabber. It's basically like this is like last direct they announced a Zelda game. The direct before that there was a Zelda game announced. These aren't really small games that are coming out. Even though the last one was a Nintendo Indies showcase. So
yeah, and that's another thing I was going to say is that they tend to tell you what to expect
a little bit.
Yeah. If it's going to be Nindies based, they just go, hey, look, we're not telling you what the games are, but you just know that this is an indie focus.
Yeah, so you basically know that this is Indies and then this is not, and then the big ones can actually come out of the ones that are not. So like the next big one, the next normal direct we see is probably going to have Animal Crossing release date in it.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Is I think you may have just mentioned something about it, but as far as the Nintendo Directs go, aren't they normally geared primarily, or at least they can be, and they've done it often, where they're geared towards a specific game? So like, well, here's a Smash Direct, and this entire direct will be Smash related.
They do that, but like typical directs aren't.
Okay, so but I guess it's the flexibility of the direct approach. It can be a direct that's all about one game, or it can be a direct that's about showing you tidbits of information about every game.
Yeah, right? and the ones that are primarily about one typically do have stuff about, like, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Well, because like they did the Pokemon Direct, like that's the most recent example I could find of that, where they did the Pokemon announcement, and it was a Direct where they went through and said, well, here's the new Pokemon games. We're going to show you this teaser, then we're going to show you a little bit of gameplay.
Yeah, and I can't remember if they interviewed the creator of Smash Brothers and Kirby, Matsuda? No. Well, I can't think of his name, but they interviewed him during the Smash Direct or E3. Because E3 threw me off with how much Smash Brothers was in it. But
yeah. I don't remember on that one either.
What do you think, though, real quick, to end this off?
Yeah, I mean,
you're going to get killed by your wife.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. If I'm not here for next episode, just find somebody who you like as much as me.
I'll just do it by myself.
Yeah, and then switch chairs every time and pretend to be me, like responding to you. That'd be fun. So what we'll do, what I'll say here is that for me, if you're going to do something a little more like Xbox Inside, it's kind of like E3. It almost feels like E3 Lite, where you're trying to be a little too much like E3, having real people there. It feels like GameStop TV.
It feels like business,
which I don't care for.
Business versus business, casual versus casual.
What it sounds like is it looks like people who are being paid, and I'm not saying these people are, but this is what it comes off as, the way I perceive it as. I perceive it as somebody who's essentially being paid to act like they are caring about it. So it's like
fake enthusiasm.
Exactly. And it's like, oh, well, we're supposed to be one of these big things, but it's always the same person. It's like, I hate to tell you this, no one person likes every single thing that's going to roll through this. And that's just how it kind of goes. When you watch that GameStop TV, which is very similar to Xbox Inside to me, it's one of those things where it feels like, this person really is into this because they've shown every game that's coming out this month. You tell me this person's into every single one of these games? It's impossible. You know how many games I don't care for?
Also, the coolest thing about Directs is that they use a roadmap. Each video, they'll have like a graphic, and it'll show you like where they're going. The 3DS and then the Switch. And then typically what it does, if it's a new game they're announcing, it'll have the date under it, like 2019.
Yep.
It's very visual there. You don't often see a lot of people running around. That's what Treehouse is for. So with
Yes.
Directs, they'll
Yeah.
have somebody up there talking, and then they'll be dubbed, and then they'll go into the roadmap, and the roadmap will show 5 or 6 games in a row, and then it'll go back to him, and he's like, now here's what here's what you're excited for. We hope to see you next time, and then they show you something big, and that's it. Or not. It's not always something big, but they show you what is probably the intention of the Direct to show you.
Kind of like the climax of it. Like
Yeah.
they finish on what they say. Well, this is what we really did the Direct for. The other thing was just updates on things, which is going to be interesting to see how they do this. Of course, there's 2 things they can do. They can either do a very Direct-like approach. They can do a very inside Xbox approach, or what they could do is some kind of a mixture between the two, where they do a lot of pre-recorded stuff, kind of roll through it, and then they just have one person come out and talk about, like, because the Nindies is a little more driven by having a little bit more talking, isn't it? I haven't really watched them, but from what I've seen from people
I didn't watch
reporting
this last
on,
one just because Liam did a play-by-play while I was at work.
so you were able to kind of get it that way, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch the last one. But that's also something else that's cool about them too. Since they're so small, they're easy to digest, and it's not like having E3 spoiled for you.
Okay, well, that's going to be the you bringing up E3 is interesting. So do you personally, and of course your feelings might change once we see what it really is, but if this is more along the lines of what you're hoping for, do you hope that they do this and completely cancel E3 and never do E3 again?
Absolutely not. Nintendo still does E3 and does a good job at it.
Well, but they do E3 via Directs.
I mean, technically, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
So
honestly, I would like to see that for once, because the last year's E3 for PlayStation was absolutely terrible
because of pacing.
Worst at the show.
Because it was live and pacing. Yeah,
yeah.
I could agree that. So if they cut that off and do something more direct, well,
worse at the show compared to it's worse at Xbox, I should say, which is the main,
because they didn't have the same, and it came down to pacing problems.
It was real bad pacing. The games that they revealed versus games we knew about for the most part. And
yeah, I mean, I'll give you that. Yeah,
showed us Akiro
and that's another thing is
Forza
expectations, right? You don't really care in a Direct. It's not a big deal if you see a game you've already seen some of, right? You're just kind of like, oh, okay, whatever.
Everybody was expecting Cyberpunk to be from PlayStation, and Xbox got it. So it's kind of, but yeah, I mean, if they did that, I wouldn't mind. Like, I don't go to E3, so I'm not really one for spectacle in that nature. So
okay, I got you. Well, I think we're gonna have to end this off so my wife doesn't kill me if I'm not here next week. Then,
sorry for the rush, guys.
Love you guys, but anyway, with that said, this has been Triangle Squared. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to our patrons, Chad V, Dan Barber, Josh Jarrell, Matthew Green, My Name is Dan, Douglas Below, Sean Santarud, Eric McAllister, Shadowist, Steven Salazar, The Stonard, Travis Below, Blake Popst, Eduardo Palomino, Stefan Swanland, and Koi Live. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, we'd appreciate it very much, and you can do so by checking the link in the description below. Thank you.